never end, never start. Got cars that never start. No plan B, can't sleep. My mind racing. Brown paper, put it underground, build the foundation.
Hey guys, how's it going? So of course with Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao on the horizon, that doesn't mean the only thing we're going to talk about on this channel is Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao. You know, unlike some other channels, we have so much we can cover on this channel. So we're going to be talking about how to beat a pressure fighter. A lot of people have asked me for a video like this. We're going to be looking at Amir Imam versus Walter Castillo. I hope you enjoyed this video. Alright, so let's start by talking about Walter Castillo. Now, if you look at Walter Castillo's style, you'll see that he's a very active fighter. He likes to throw upwards of 80 punches around. He never stops coming forward. He's always busy, always active. This is the type of nightmare for a lot of opposition because they don't want to fight somebody who's always in their face the whole time. You know, it's the same thing you saw with Julio Cesar Chavez, always in your face, always coming forward, you know, very active, cutting off the ring. This is typical of most pressure fighters, and when they have good head movement as well, and when they have power behind those punches, it can be really difficult to actually set your own game plan in motion. So we're going to take a look at exactly the different tenets and the different principles which Amir Imam follows in this fight in order to effectively neutralize Walter Castillo. When you're in the ring with a pressure fighter, the very first thing you must do is establish a good jab. You have to have a commanding jab. In other words, it has to be quick. It has to have snap behind it. It has to be there constantly in the face of your pressure fighting opponent in order to prevent your opponent from just closing the distance as quickly as he wants to. You see, without a jab, your opponent will very easily just close the distance by waltzing directly into you. Okay, and he can get on the inside and he can bully you around very easily. You need to know how to throw an effective jab in order to keep your opponent from constantly charging at you and just walking directly into you. Your jab also helps you to measure your range, occupy your opponent, keep your distance, and helps you set up your more powerful punches at the same time. So you can look at this as an absolute rule number one. You need a good jab. Now, as he circles out to his right, watch how he leads with the jab down to the body. Then he changes his target up to the head, as you see him double jab there to the head there, as Castillo avoids. Now, watch how he sets up this right hand. See how he's going to use the jab here now. Jab to set up that powerful right hand. Rule number one, you have to establish that jab.
And that's what Castillo has to do when Imam gives up his range like that.
Timing, as we know, is very crucial in boxing. But sometimes it's even more crucial when you're in there with a guy who doesn't stop his pressure. Okay, and this is one of the ways you can get the upper hand against a pressure fighter, is really to be able to time him as he's coming in with straight shots right down the middle. Pressure fighters typically have very good head movement. But even with that head movement, when a lot of pressure fighters attempt to close the distance on you, sometimes they keep their head on the center line and you can time them directly as they're coming in, typically with straight shots right down the middle. One of the ways I've always found success was by leading with the jab and then stepping back to create that distance where it looks like I'm giving up my range. And as the pressure fighter steps forward to try and fill in that range, try and close down the fight, try and close me down, I can then just time him with that right hand as he walks into the punch. Very effective strategy to use against a pressure fighter. Just to outline how Amir Imam could have used this technique, watch him lead with the jab. Now watch how he steps back to set the trap. Stepping back like this against an aggressive pressure fighter is always going to get them to try and steal inches on you, thinking that you're giving up your range and they want to close the distance. That is the moment where Walter Castillo has just committed to himself. And this is where you see the right hand straight down the middle will have success. Okay, this is how you set up that right hand to time them as they're coming in.
And Castillo keeps coming forward, but gets stopped in his tracks with that straight right. But
See, defense on the ropes can be tricky, man. See, defense on the ropes can be tricky, man. See, defense on the ropes can be tricky, man.
Fernandez worked with Castillo.
The check hook is a weapon you absolutely have to have within your arsenal if you want to beat a pressure fighter, because a lot of the time when they become very aggressive and they're just going to charge towards you, a check hook is one of your best escape routes. As you saw in the Floyd Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton fight, the check hook is something you can always use to time your opponent. This is why I'm talking about this in the same segment of talking about timing your opponent, because when they're coming in aggressively, the check hook is an excellent weapon for both offense and defense, because you can catch them. And you notice as Amir Imam is actually pivoting now, he's pivoting away to safety. This is one of the reasons why the check hook is an excellent weapon against a pressure fighting opponent.
I'm going to tell you an interesting statistic from show stats. 18 of the 42 jabs that Imam threw landed last round. 10 were to the body. And why is that important? He's using that jab to the body to help set up the right hand. And it's landing against Castillo.
Yep. And when a guy comes forward like Castillo does, when you shoot that jab to the body, it can act as a syringe because it's double the momentum going sucking into his stomach.
Castillo is a very active and very aggressive
time. And the first African-American
to move defensively.
When you're in the ring with a guy who keeps coming forward, the use of lateral movement and the ability to fight on the back foot is very crucial. Lateral movement will allow you to circle around your opponent, which can often leave your opponent off balance and actually provide better angles for you to punch. Also, in addition, the proper use of lateral movement will allow you to make sure that you keep your opponent's feet constantly in motion, which means that you don't allow them to set down on their punches. Being able to fight on the back foot is obviously very crucial because a pressure fighter is going to force you backwards most of the time. And if you have no offense or no offensive capability when you're moving backwards, you're going to be in trouble. The use of lateral movement and the ability to fight on the back foot is very effective, especially against a pressure fighter who doesn't know how to cut off the ring. But of course, when you're in there with a guy who does know how to cut off the ring, things can become more difficult. But this is where you need a very good jab, as well as the ability to time your opponent and also know how to get off the ropes.
With the likes of top lightweight Richard Abril.
The conventional wisdom in boxing says that when you're in there with a pressure fighter, you want to stay off the ropes. You don't want to be on the ropes versus a pressure fighter. Now, of course, we know it's extremely difficult for you to avoid being on the ropes throughout the entire fight. This is something that's inevitably going to happen. So if you're not very comfortable fighting on the ropes, the best thing to do is as soon as you feel your back touching the ropes, you need to pivot and turn your opponent so that you can circle back into the center of the ring.
Both were brimming with confidence at were brimming with confidence at stiff counter right by Imam.
It's a great point.
Imam along the ropes. Imam.
Of course, if you really want to give yourself the very best chance in the ring against a pressure fighter, you need to learn how to fight off the ropes. It would be wise to invest time in learning how to fight off the ropes so that you can execute a game plan while being on the ropes. And as you can see here from Amir Imam, excellent counterpunching, looking like a young James Toney as he rolls and slips and counters with that right hand. Simply beautiful to watch from Amir Imam. Counterpunching off the ropes is a very key aspect of being effective against a pressure fighting opponent. It is simply physically impossible to talk about fighting off the ropes without talking about James Lights Out Toney. This man was the epitome of being able to be backed up against the ropes and being able to catch and shoot punches, counterattack off the ropes. He had defense, he had offense, he had vision, he had the ability to probe for offense. He could see what was coming back and he could counterpunch so effectively on the ropes that you almost couldn't believe what you were watching.
I may as well do the same thing Iran does and whack away at the liver. Barkley starting to push him into the corners now. No low blow warnings from Richard Steele. Barkley has begun.
Being a very smart fighter or being intelligent in the ring also means knowing when your opponent is relentless and insists on coming forward. This is when you need to know how to effectively clinch your opponent to stop the aggression. It's amazing how certain fighters get so much stick and so much abuse for using the clinch in boxing, which is a valid move in boxing, when the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali, used the clinch very, very often in a fight and knew the effectiveness of the clinch.
Yeah, I do it so easy. Name was Ram in the can. Yours used to be CC. Used to love sweet tea, salt, pepper, and Spinderella. Nigga, I'm bigger Bella. Baby, I'm quicker on the draw cause I bossed up. Some say big was the best. I say it's a toss up. I be staying frosted up.